Hey folks, Kevin here. Well, it's September 30th, 2018. I'm standing out in the area where the future Gothic High Tunnel will be going, which is a season extension. Looks a little bit like a greenhouse, but it's a place where we'll be able to plant in the fall months and be able to harvest our crop throughout the winter months. We really won't be growing during the winter months, but if we plant it early enough in the fall, then we can go ahead and reap some of the benefits throughout the whole winter as well. So as I mentioned, this is an Ask Me Anything episode, and David had recently asked a question following how fast do wood chips decompose. His question was, I've been collecting organic material, including wood chips. I have been composting it down with the hopes that I will fill a low area in my yard and being able to turn that area into a garden space. What limitations am I going to be facing? How deep can I make the area? At one spot, I may need to build it up 2 feet. Your thoughts? Thanks so much, David. I really appreciate your comments and questions. As I mentioned, I'm standing over here, and you can see there's tons of wood chips all around, most of which that you can see right in here are brand new ones. And over in here, they're old wood chips. It's actually decomposed to the point where it's basically soil now. So behind me there is a fence. That fence is a cedar fence. It's 6 feet tall, and the wood chips are built up to about 4 feet high. Now that's 4 foot high above a hugelkultur base. Now when I say a hugelkultur base, hugelkultur just simply means that dirt is covered woody material. So if you have a bunch of logs and you want to lay those logs down and make a little stack of them, and you cover it up with dirt, some people will plant into that and grow their food, and potentially it needs less maintenance and all. I haven't found that to be the case, but I do love hugelkultur. I've just modified the hugelkultur system on our site to get all the benefits of it and not necessarily have all the work that may be related with growing on hugelkultur systems. So I'm actually standing on top of a hugelkultur system. So if you can imagine, right now in the area that I'm standing, where we've got 4 foot of decomposing wood chips that I'm standing on right now. But below that, I had dug out with the excavator, dug down 4 to 6 feet deep and put logs and logs and logs in there. I took a lot of that dirt and used it in other spots, and the rest of it I covered it up and compacted the soil down on top of those logs. So that's 4 feet below where I am right now. There's 4, 5, maybe 6 foot of logs below that with soil compacted on top of it. Then, I think it was 3 years ago, and time sort of like flies now. Once I retired, I removed my watch, and I can't even tell you what day of the week it is most of the time, and my days just go by so quick. But I think it was 3 years ago I met Bud from the tree service that delivers the bulk of our wood chips that we get here. He was doing some work down our road, and I stopped and I said, geez, if you got any loads, I'd like to get them if you get any more in the future. And he looked at me and said, yeah, sure, this guy will get sick of wood chips in a week's time. And so I took everything he had, and he says, you know, I've got wood chips at my property, which is just a short ways away. And he would come home with his loads and build up this pile, and the pile was probably, I'm guessing, just over 100 foot long, maybe 20 feet high, maybe 30, 40, 50 feet wide in some places, but only 20 feet wide in other places. And said, do you want those? And I said, sure. He let me use a skid steer loader, and I loaded them up on my dump trailer and brought them back here and started building up this material. Now that woody material, some of it was fresh from his place, and some of it was probably 3 years old. So let's say on average it was 1.5 years old. Already started decomposing, but it wasn't decomposed optimally like you've talked about using organic material with your wood chips at the same time. These were just loads of wood chips piled up, pushed up into a big pile, driven up on top of it, dumping more and more loads. and allowed to decompose that way. So it had lots of weed seeds in it, and you know, small trees that started growing up in there and been a couple feet high as well. Lots of clusters of weeds. This was in a low area that was pretty wet. But I wanted all that material, and so I took all of it and I kept bringing it back here and spreading it out and build up this base. Now it was actually taller than what it is right now. It was probably 5 feet deep initially, and I think that was 3 years ago. And then 2 years ago, I kept having him come back and dumping more loads. Now these were all fresh stuff. As his tree surface was cutting stuff down, he'd dump it here and I would spread it out. Now back to my right, the left side of your screen, is the area that was the deepest, because that's our fence line, the property line there, and I'm trying to build up this to make it more level going to my left side, your right side of the screen. So that way's uphill, that way's downhill. So I was always getting more and more build up back here, and each year I build it up to be 1 foot from the top of the fence at this end. So, and they would gradually decompose. Now we're in a cold, temperate climate in this area here. So, you know, we've had droughts more commonly in the last few years, but we do get the snow loads and the melt from that, and that really does help the decomposition of these woody materials. And because I'm constantly putting wood chips on top of older wood chips, the wood chips below it are already inoculated with fungal elements that can expand into the fresh wood chips that are here. And the fresh wood chips get the leaves that fall from this area as well, and add more of a easier to break down fungal material for the fungal organisms to work from the top as well. So I hope that all makes sense the way I'm describing it. So right now I'm standing on 4 foot thick of wood chips. Everything less than a foot below my feet, everything greater than 1 foot below my feet is much more decomposed and becoming more soil. And over here, this spring, I dug this spillway, this swale system that goes around the building there, and it takes water from up on the property and brings it back there to Pond 5, so that I can try and alleviate some of the pitfalls of the droughts that we're having, because Pond 5 is a leaky pond. So that whole area, being able to carve into it, it isn't like carving into wood chips, it's carving into soil at this point. So 3 years of using some partially decomposed wood chips is the amount of time that it's taken to break that down. The moister that the wood chips are, the more rapidly they'll break down. The more that they're inoculated with fungal elements, the more quickly that they're going to break down as well. The smaller the size of the individual wood chips, the greater the surface area, therefore the greater the number of fungal mycelium that can inoculate it, and then the secondary nematode consuming fungal elements move in, and all of the microarthropods, the protozoa as well. So the whole succession of microorganisms going into those wood chips really works out well. Now if you've got lots of weeds or that are coming in with your weed seeds and weedy material that are coming in, and it's taking you a long time to build up the amount of material that you're trying to work with, and you're not turning the material, then you may have some tenacious weeds, things like bindweed or quackgrass, depending on where you're located. Those can be an issue. And it really depends on where you are and what your climate's like as well. If you're in a cold temperate climate like we are, where you get enough rain or snowfall, then the woody material will break down more quickly, especially in a low spot. If you're actually doing this organic adding to the low spot on your lawn where you want the future garden, it can work out great. Otherwise, if you're doing it in another spot, then I would say be turning the material to try and maintain temperatures. Ideally, composting it would be the best thing. And you can refer to some of our composting videos to see how we do thermophilic composting, where we want to get the temperatures at least above 131 degrees Fahrenheit and less than 165 degrees Fahrenheit. And we want to take the outside of the material, the stuff on the outer surface and on the lower base of it, and constantly incorporate that so that it can get up to temperature as well. And I've done quite a few videos on composting materials, including cardboard, paper products, wood chips, weeds, all of those things. Those are all manageable items to be incorporating in a future garden area. Even things like bindweed and quackgrass, I've composted those down and put those, the decomposed elements of those noxious weeds into gardens as well. But it's sort of painstaking. You really need to keep close eye on it. I don't see, now if you're in a very arid environment, you could actually run into problems with termites or fire ants, wherever it may be. It really depends on your geographic location and what your climate is actually like. But I'd say wood chips have been one of the most amazing resources, a waste product that I've run into. Cardboard, paper, and wood chips, and animal manure. So those things have really helped us to change our entire site, to seal ponds, create garden sites, to change the slope of the land. All of those things we've been able to accomplish, and to be able to grow highly nutritious food with the composted materials that we compost as well. So things really work out if you can really target those resources around you. If you needed to make sure that you're having really rich soil in the future, you can look for resources. Now in some places you get animal manures, other places you might be able to get grocery waste from local grocery stores, or be able to find farmers that have waste. And I would just stay away from anything that's genetically modified or that has pesticides used on their sites as well. So like before, I was able to get one coffee shop to give us their coffee grounds, and so we use that to feed a lot of the food forest. But if I didn't have the food forest, I would be adding it to the wood chips as well. It's a nice slow release nitrogen source, and then you have all this carbon here in this brown wood chippy material. So it's trying to find out what else is waste that other people have, and try to figure out, well, what's the mixture given these waste products that are resources for us, and making good soil, or filling the low spots on our property. So I hope this was of value. If you found it informative or inspiring, please give us a thumbs up. If I didn't answer the question adequately, leave more detail, and I'd be happy in the comments below, and I'd be happy to come back and tackle this topic again. Wood chips are awesome. Waste is awesome. We just need to turn waste into resources. Thanks so much for watching, folks, and have a great day. Bye-bye now.